So you know how the Trump administration is holding all these press conferences and they're like, we're winning, we're bombing ships, we're threatening to go into another country, we're winning so much. Oh, look, this one brown-skinned person has a horrible track record, we're winning. And then MAGA supporters are like, oh my God, all this winning. They're not winning and they're pissed. So here's what Fox News doesn't want you to know. So companies in the United States are taking a huge hit. Let's just focus on BlackRock, okay? The big American finance giant. They just lost $17 billion. Why did they lose $17 billion? Because a giant Dutch pension fund withdrew their investment in BlackRock. Why? Why did they do that? Because BlackRock de-emphasized climate and social justice initiatives to cater to Trump's agenda. And then this pissed off the Trump administration. Morgan Stanley, another financial giant, just undertook a huge study. They pulled a shit ton of individual investors in U.S. companies, and 80% of them said that they want companies like BlackRock and any other companies they choose to invest in to have climate change initiatives. They believe climate change is real. They're upset at all these companies capitulating to this dumbass administration. They believe in climate change. 80% of them. So they're putting their own pressure on companies, withdrawing money, investing elsewhere in companies that have the balls to stand up to this administration. Trump, their administration is not happy. And then here's a big one. Trump is so pissed off, he even posted about it. A Norway wealth fund worth $2 trillion just sold their stake in Caterpillar. U.S. equipment manufacturer Caterpillar. Yep. Just sold all of their shares. Why? Because Israel purchases Caterpillar equipment to undertake the big G word. Yeah, Norway divested in a bunch of Israel banks and investments as well for the same reason. This pissed off MAGA so much that Lindsey Graham just went on a tirade. We're going to put even more tariffs on you, Norway, and we're going to revoke, all of your visas to come here and everything like that. They are piss. Meanwhile, other investors are having this conversation across the board. Fox News is not letting you know about this. They have seen a titanic shift of other countries investing in American markets, meaning they're not. They're pulling out. They're not investing in American companies. The U.S. exceptionalism has been single-handedly destroyed by this administration. And other, especially dictator countries are more than happy to step in and fill the gap, and they are. And these investors, U.S. investors, are saying it's not going to return because European stocks, Hong Kong stocks, all these stocks are soaring and they love it. And now everybody's buying in to other countries' investments and they're completely bypassing the United States. And the final message that investors are passing around to each other is we have no one who's going to help us. We have to save ourselves. That's a lot of winning.
The White House has confirmed that tomorrow Donald Trump will sign an executive order that rolls back the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Also, Pete Hegseth can be called the Secretary of War. Now, we're not in any active wars. The Department of Defense received that name after World War II, once the United States took on a posture of essentially policing the world that they've held for the last 80 years. Now, the White House notice says that the official name change is happening because the largest, most advanced, fiercest fighting force in the history of the world should not be named defense, because that does not portray power. That portrays weakness, and that you're waiting for something to happen. And that the United States doesn't wait for things to happen, it makes things happen. As a veteran who deployed to every war zone that the United States was active in throughout the early 2000s, there's no reason to rename the Department of Defense unless we just want to spend money so Pete Hegseth can be called the Secretary of War.
In another ridiculous Donald Trump decision, his administration has just decided to roll back the rule that required airlines to compensate passengers of commercial flights if their flights were delayed or canceled. In December, before leaving office, Joe Biden sought to compensate customers of airlines $200 to $300 if their flight was delayed or canceled because of something the carrier did incorrectly. The big corporate U.S. airlines didn't like this, and they fought back. And Donald Trump today sided with the big corporate airlines over the everyday Americans like you and me. The Trump administration, in addition to this, has also said that they're considering rescinding guidelines that would have required airlines to show the customer what all their fees were and break it down for them. The airlines get a win here, and you and me, well, we lost.
Leave work for a couple of days and then you get behind on all the news. Trump administration is to vet 55 million visa holders amid immigration crackdown. The Guardian, this is from a Guardian, they've launched a sweeping review of 55 million valid U.S. visa holders under continuous vetting measures. That's a lot of people. Targeting potential violations or perceived security risks. The policy includes monitoring social media for anti-American views. What's that? Criminal activity or ties to terrorism with possible visa revocations and deportations. International students are especially affected, facing intensified scrutiny after protests over U.S. foreign policy. Officials say immigration benefits are privileges, not rights, and must align with national interests. Critics argue the measures risk profiling and civil liberty violations, raising concerns over free speech and due process protections for immigrants. My name is Ruby Powers, your go-to immigration attorney.
It is not lost to anyone who follows the United Nations that the U.S. is barring the Palestinian delegation from attending the UN General Assembly precisely during a session that will have as its centerpiece the situation in Palestine, the genocide in Gaza, the recognition of Palestinian statehood, as you've said, by a number of new additional delegations, a conference on the two-state solution, and very importantly, in advance of extraordinary action that's expected in the UN General Assembly, when the UN's one-year deadline for Israeli compliance with the demands of the International Court of Justice and the UN General Assembly expires in September, and at which point the UN General Assembly is expected to adopt further measures to hold the Israeli regime accountable. I have to say that this trend of the denial of visas for Palestinians is just the latest step in what has been an expanding U.S. government trend of effectively importing the racist ideology of the Israeli regime.
We have breaking news. The Trump administration just ripped away protections for airline passengers.
Jesus Christ.
You heard me right. Gone. Eliminated. If your flight gets delayed or canceled because of an airline screw-up, guess what? No more guaranteed compensation. No more free rebookings. You're on your own.
God damn!
Under Biden's previous plan, passengers were set to get at least $200 for a 3-hour delay, scaling up to $775 for nightmare 9-hour delays. But today, Trump's Department of Transportation pulled the plug, calling those protections burdensome regulations. Last part's the most important. Of course, the airlines cheered, and passengers, we just got played. So let me get this straight. They killed consumer protections in banking, blocked medical debt relief, and now stripped away airline compensation. If you want a refund now, you gotta buy the more expensive refundable ticket. Basically paying extra to protect yourself from the airline's own mistakes. How is this helping Americans? This is the biggest scam in the airline industry, period. Make sure to follow or subscribe for more up-to-date news that you won't hear anywhere else.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have some interesting news as the Trump administration hasn't even created 600,000 jobs yet this year. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has posted another report that says the U.S. has only added 22,000 jobs in August, which is extremely low compared to the expected 75,000 predicted for that month. So far, the U.S. has only added 598,000 jobs this year compared to the 1,144,000 at this time in 2024. The numbers are also adding higher unemployment rates, as that has now ticked to 4.3%, which hadn't been seen since September of 2017 before COVID. Trump was asked on Thursday about the report ahead of the release and said that Americans would see the real numbers, and today would call that data disappointing. So after months of saying the numbers weren't true, now they are, which is interesting how that works. I wonder what that's a cover-up for. I think we all know. But this is proof that this administration is actively failing day after day and not actually doing the things that they said they were going to do. Not even 600,000 jobs have been created. That is genuinely sad. That is so sad when the Biden administration had created over 1 million jobs at this point, and they say Joe Biden is a bad president. Why isn't yours creating jobs then? It is genuinely sad that that is a statistic. Like, that is so sad, genuinely. With that being said, though, thank you everyone for watching this video. Like and repost to get the information out. Drop a follow for more news content. Later.
The Trump administration this week announced it's dropping a Biden-era plan to require airlines to compensate passengers if their flight is delayed for reasons under airline control. The rule hadn't taken effect yet and was open for public comment last year. It would have meant that airlines were on the hook to pay passengers between $200 and $775, depending on how long their flight was delayed, and cover meals, lodging, and rebooking. The Department of Transportation said it would, however, stick to airline passenger protections required by law. The U.S. requires refunds for passengers when flights are canceled to, from, or within the United States. They are not obligated to compensate for delays like the EU, Canada, and others are. Airlines for America, a trade group representing major U.S. airlines, celebrated the Trump administration's move, saying the Biden-era rule exceeded the Department of Transportation's authority and doesn't, quote, solve issues important to our customers.
I don't know if you guys remember, but on August 1st, Donald Trump fired the BLS commissioner. He claimed that she was a Biden appointee that was manipulating job growth numbers. Well, guess what came out today? The new job growth numbers under the new commissioner that Donald Trump put in. Are the numbers any better? Well, fuck no, they still suck. 22,000 jobs added against a purported 75,000 jobs that were supposed to be added. Not to mention, our unemployment rate went up again, 4.3, highest since 2021, I believe. Way to go, dickhead.